Hey everybody, it is day number 9 of my 30-day challenge. Almost a third of the way through, which is pretty crazy. Today I kind of want to take off where I left off, continue on where I left off from yesterday, starting your own Zettelkasten. And today I skipped over the observation notes, the source notes, and I want to dig into that. But again, this was probably going to take a whole day because, anyway, I think the best way to do this is I'm going to assume from now on, I'm going to assume that you have note cards. Okay, you've been you've stayed with me this long, so I'm going to assume you have note cards. And so go ahead and get a note card, and we're going to create a source card. Now, some people call these bib cards, some people call them source cards. I call them source because that's what they are. They're sources. Now, bib cards, yeah, bibliographies, you can point a bib card to anything, but I like to call these source cards. That's just my convention. Now, on these source cards, as I showed you yesterday, you have, let me see if I can put that up to the camera there. Hopefully you can see it. You have basically the name of the author. You have the date of publication. If it's a book, it's going to be the year. If it's a YouTube video, it's going to be the date that it was posted. You have the title, what it is. In this case, it's the one thing, the surprisingly simple truth behind extraordinary results. And then a few people in the Zettelkasten community, they started putting, why? Why am I looking at this source material? And then followed by the why is a summary, which you'll fill in at the end of when you're through the material, or when you're most of the way through the material, or, when you take a break from it. So what I'd like you to do is get yourself a source card. Let's go ahead and make one for this video. And, put my name there, Mahaffey, Mahaffey, and then comma, Chadrick, Chadrick. And then you can put today's date, which is January 9th, 2024. And then you can put the title of this video, which it's going to be about source and bib cards and observation notes. I'll have the title. You'll see the title on the video. I don't have it written out yet. But go ahead and start that. And then what you're going to do is once you have, my name, the date, and the name of the YouTube video, and the why, whatever your why is, why you're watching this, leave the summary blank. Then you're going to flip the card over horizontally, like so. Now this is a book bib card, or book source card, and I have the page numbers down the card. So what these are is simply really short notes about things that resonate with you, things that you may want to go back to, not necessarily that you're going to go back to and create main cards from, you might promote to a main card, but that you might find them interesting enough to do that. So in the case of a YouTube video, you'll just put the timestamp. You'll put the timestamp of something that resonates, maybe hit pause, and then write down what I just said, however that works best for you. Now, let's see here. On the top right, when you're doing a YouTube video, you'll put number 1, and then when you fill up when you fill up one page, then you'll create another one. And let me get these real quick. You'll just keep creating these, and you'll put the number on the top right. Now, for books, I always put the page number that I start with, that I'm starting the new note with, that resonates with me. For a YouTube video, I just do sequential numbers 1 through however long it takes me to write out these notes. Now, you notice some of these are longer notes than others, and that's just, it's just how I feel about it at the time, and how much I want to write, how much I don't. But these are not supposed to be the same notes that are going to be on your main card. These are going to be real simple summaries. You can always go back to the source material, look at it for context, look at it in its context, and then pull that information out. All right, so I'm assuming you've created one, and then so what you're doing every time you start new source material, every time you start a new source, a new YouTube video, a new book, a new article, anything you're reading, get in the habit of writing a source card. And what this does is it trains your brain to say, hey, brain, I'm expecting to learn something. I'm expecting to find an insight. And instead of just being a consumer, then you're training your brain that you want to digest this information. So, I want to bring up something. There's a book out there that a lot of Zettelkasten people know of, and it's How to Take Smart Notes by, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce his name right, Zonke Ahrens, I think is how you pronounce his name. It's Sonkeahrens. Now, he actually brings up in his book the idea of fleeting notes, literature notes, and permanent notes. Now, this is not something Niklas Luhmann did not. He didn't refer to those terms. This is something that Ahrens developed on his own. Now, a lot of people associate these things with the Zettelkasten because of Ahrens' book. Now, I haven't read Ahrens' book. I just actually purchased it today, and I'll be starting through it, and I'll be putting it into my Zettelkasten. It's funny because today I read on Reddit, there was somebody saying, I've stopped doing literature notes in a different box. Now, I don't know what this person means by literature notes, but he said having two boxes didn't make sense. Now, if he's talking about, source notes, like bib cards and source cards, if he's talking about these kind of notes, I would still keep them separate from your main notes. Now, if Ahrens is talking about something else when he refers to literature notes versus permanent notes, then you'll have to do some more research. I'll have to do some more research. I'm not familiar with this term, and it's something that I do not believe that Luhmann had in mind when he created his Zettelkasten. So I just want to throw that in there just in case there is some confusion, and maybe I'll learn something in the future that changes my mind about that. There's an Einstein quote. I'm going to find it. Let me quickly look through my index. Hopefully my microphone is not going to scratch all over the place on you. So I'm going to look up in my index. I'm looking up memory because that's what I have it under. Where is it? Yeah, memory. Okay. There's two cards here I have in my Zettelkasten. An Einstein quote, never memorize anything you can look up. Now, it's interesting that a big brain guy like him would say that. Never memorize anything you can look up. But you got to know where to find it. And you got to have a system that makes it easy to find. Now, I found these cards, pretty quickly. And within my 1,500 cards that I have, because I have them addressed. And because my Einstein card was next to this other card that was written from my McEwen source, which I don't know what that is, but I'd have to look it up in my source card to find out what that is. But it doesn't matter. I have a quote in there that this author, Essentialism. That's the book, and he said the faintest pencil is better than the strongest memory. And that is true. That is so true. There's a FBI, I think he was FBI agent. I don't remember what year it was, 2017 maybe. Scott Frazier. And he has a TED Talk about why eyewitnesses get it wrong, right? And he talks about how our brains abhor a vacuum. My wife and I were watching a TV show at lunchtime today, and Castle. We love the show Castle. And during one of the scenes, his college-age daughter is stealing food from his refrigerator because she doesn't have any money to buy food, and he sets a trap, and somehow it explodes, and she's got blue face paint all over her face and her clothes and everything. And my wife and I, at the end of the show, I could swear that it was blue, and she said it was green, and it was. It's just interesting how two people can see the same thing and remember things differently. Now she swore it's green, and I could swear that it's blue. I asked her to go back and look at it, and I was right. Not that matters, but it's so interesting how our brains, and it's funny because she said what I thought when I saw that, his daughter was reaching into the refrigerator, and she said she reminded me of the Grinch, stealing stuff, at Christmas time. And so her brain associated that with green. This is a big, long besides, but our brains abhor a vacuum. They make up information. We only store bits and pieces, and our brains are automatically tying them to feelings or, other things that we have seen and remember. And it's so crazy how it works. So, having it written down is huge. And you might actually write it down wrong, which I've done, a few times. But let's see, Scott Frazier calls this reconstructive memory. I haven't done a ton of research on this. I've done a lot of research on memory and intelligence and thinking and cognition. But this is something you might find interesting. And it's interesting how we are, if we use the analogy of maybe, let's say, a river, where a river is always changing, and we are constantly changing what is interesting to us today may not be interesting to us in the future. What is not interesting at all today, might fascinate us tomorrow. And we have new knowledge all the time. So our worldview is constantly changing. Now, there's some foundational things that it's not going to change, right? But you think about it like a river. We're never in the same place. And I was thinking of the river analogy, and I'm thinking about how, a river can cut into an embankment, and over time that embankment can just erode and finally disappear. And I like that analogy when you think about worldviews, because you can have epiphanies. You can have things. I mean, that's what Christianity is all about, right? Changing our minds from, the worldly mindset, the worldly view, into an eternal view, right? Something that's beyond us and beyond human nature. So, and one of the things that Alex Hormozzi, he says, is, and he got this from somebody, I don't know who, but he says, we have to be reminded more than we need to be taught. And it's so true. We forget things so fast. And the Zettelkasten, with its feedback loop of when I'm looking for the next place to put another card, I'm reviewing cards that are around that. And I'm reminded of all the insights that I put in there. And I'm finding the perfect spot for it. And it's a way of reminding and continually keeping those insights, those pieces of important information that I decided were important, keeping them maybe not up to date completely, but it allows us to have this, I've already talked about, this communication with our past self. Everything written in there is written from the river analogy again, was written, in the past, when I cared about different things, when I was super interested in this or that. Anyway, we have to be reminded a lot of times more than we have to be taught. And Christianity is, I mentioned this scripture, I don't remember what day it was, day 4, maybe, day 5. Don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that is, renewing of our mind. That's Romans 12:2. And then Colossians 1:3, it says, keep seeking the things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Keep seeking the things above. Because our default is to not do that. Our default is to, new things come, and I'm just on these new things, and I gradually forget about the past things. So do an experiment and just do a word search on remind in the New Testament and see how many times remind comes up. You'll see it all over the place. It's a very cool study to do. Nicholas Luhmann, he talked about, he actually wrote his paper, I believe it's called Communicating with Note Boxes. And he talks about the ghost in the box, or the ghost in the machine, or I don't know what he actually refers to it as, but it's your past self, your past beliefs, your past insights. And you are literally having a conversation with an inanimate object. And that's pretty cool. And when you're reading new material, you're reading new books and whatnot, you are like I read a lot. I'm reading more and more Tolstoy. Now, the guy's been dead for a long time, but I can still, it's a one-sided conversation, but I can still get huge insights into what he thought and how he thought. It's very cool. So anyway, so as you're building out these source cards, you will start to get quite a library of them, right? These are a lot of my 2023 sources that I spent a lot of time looking at. Now I've got more, let's see. I've got more. These are the rest of them that I have. Now you'll notice every once in a while I have a pink card in here. I have a pink card in here. And what that tells me is that I purposely skipped a portion. And so I've got a pink card in there to remind me that I can go back to that and find where I left off. And because you have them time-stamped or page or the page marked, then you can easily look at your observation notes, find out right where you were, what you were reading, what you were thinking, and get right back into it and do some follow-up. Now, one thing that is really cool about these source cards, bib cards, is that they are very ADHD. They're very helpful for someone with ADHD tendencies because we're jumping from subject to subject to subject all the time. Excuse me. And I can actually be reading multiple books at the same time. I'm currently reading probably 6 or 7 different books. And I'm watching YouTube videos all the time. I'm learning new things all the time. And the cool thing about this is because I have these source notes, I can do that. Before the Zettelkasten, there's no way I could do that. I'd get halfway through a book, I'd get bored of it. I wasn't taking notes to begin with, or if I was, they'd get lost in one of these journals, and I have no idea where things are, or it takes me forever to find them. But now I've got all these source notes that I can easily look back through. Okay, so let me back up a minute. So once you have these, then you want to review them. You want to review them over time. And as you review them, some of these, that S was probably going to hit huge on the mic. I got to pay attention to that. But some of these will be promoted to main cards. Not all of them. And it shouldn't be all of them. It should be the things that really interest you and that apply to something you're working on right then. It doesn't have to. I mean, if you want to remember it and if you want to write, kind of your thoughts out along with the information that's provided, I highly suggest doing that. So let's see, let me get back to my notes here. Because you have these source notes, because you have all this valuable information that you'll eventually promote to your main notes, the Zettelkasten helps you. I talk a lot about the why, right? If your why is strong enough, then your how and your what, you'll find a way. Sean Cannell. Sean Cannell is a guy that he teaches you how to do YouTube content. I've been doing a lot of research into his stuff. And Think Media Podcast, if you're interested in doing this kind of thing, he's hugely helpful. Comes from a Christian perspective too. And so what he says is, it's not about the resources. It's about the resourcefulness. And I think that's a different way of saying that, if your why is strong enough, you will find a way. And so the Zettelkasten, another thing that it allows you to do is you're only putting things in that resonate with you, and you're putting the things out that interest you, and all of a sudden you're starting to see what you really like. What are you really passionate about? What could potentially be your purpose, or that reason for being that I talked about, that Japanese word ikigai, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but you know, you're finding those things that you're passionate about. Anyway, it's a huge tool for that. And in my book, in my book, and I think I've read this already, maybe in one of the other videos, but I'll read it again. What if you could recall every valuable insight you ever came across from this day forward, and then use those insights to motivate you to take profound action? I've already read that. At the very beginning of the book, I talk about the movie Limitless. I don't know if you can see that picture or not. I talk about that movie Limitless, which came out in 2013. And this is part of the plot of that movie Limitless. In the film, this depressed, down on his luck wannabe writer stumbles upon a drug that allows him to access everything he has ever experienced, and then make connections from all those experiences to come up with profound and valuable new insights. Now, turns out the drug is too good to be true, has some side effects. I won't ruin the movie for you if you plan on watching it. It's rated R, but I like the movie, the plot. What would we do for this kind of ability? And the Zettelkasten actually gives us, without the Hollywood, gives us this ability. It gives us the ability to remember everything that we decide to save, things that resonate with us. We never have to forget them and build upon them. I've already talked about this, so I won't get into it very much more, but without any side effects. The only side effect that we have is a lifelong addiction to learning and growing and building. So source cards are that first step. I don't have that card out right now, I don't think, but the source card is that first step. It's kind of stage one. I'm finding all these insights and I'm writing down very summarized information. And then eventually you will review those and then promote some of those things to main notes. Or you might go straight from your source material into a main note, and that's fine too. Anyway, that's probably way too long for today's video, and I'll stop it there. But thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all the feedback I'm getting. I'm getting some more feedback. I'm going to try to actually figure out how to do chapter time stops. Like, I don't know what they're called actually, but I think they're called chapters. I'm going to try to figure that out. And again, this is day 9 of 30. We've got 21 days left. I really appreciate you. Keep seeking his face, and God bless.